question I ask anyone I ever interview, because I always like to start it off on the right foot, is how is your day going?
It could be better. It's only Tuesday, so you know, one of those like just like trying to get through the week with work and whatever. It's very blah.
Well, that doesn't sound too exciting, but I'm sure everyone feels that way with work sometimes.
Yeah.
So, how are you feeling about the album release?
Pretty stoked. It's been about a year in the making because we tracked it last summer, so it's been about 12 months since we like actually recorded it. Um, and then it came out last week, and we have about 3 more weeks until our album release shows, where we're basically doing a tour to help support it, and then we have another tour the next month, and so yeah, pretty stoked and looking forward to all that.
Well, that's great. It sounds like you definitely have some things lined up.
Yeah, I mean, it only makes sense, you got a new album that comes out, you might as well go out, play the songs and get out there. I don't know. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
So now that the album's released, I have to ask, is there anything that you would change about the album?
Uh, Not really. I mean, I feel like thinking about stuff like that is kind of like a waste of space. I mean, you could always think about like, oh, I wanted to do this or want to do this, but you could do that next time, just I guess you can always like learn for like as far as like writing and recording and just like apply that towards like your new music. But I try to like just life in general to not like think about the past of like what you could or what you could have done differently. To me, it's just like a waste of brain space.
That's true. You can definitely take like what you wanted to change and put it on the next album. So that's kind of, nice to think about too.
Yeah. You have to kind of look at it as like your music is like a snapshot in time of like what you wanted or whatever you were like striving for at that period of time. And then, even if you don't like it as much as you did, like, a couple years later, it's like it doesn't really matter. It's like that's what you wanted in that time period. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I have to ask, from the creation of the album to now, how many times have you listened to the album?
I'm sorry, how many times have I listened to the album?
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know. Probably like 100 times. I have no idea. Yeah, a lot. Yeah, I
Yeah.
usually like even though like I can't change anything, I still like dissect it and like, I'll listen to it on repeat, just trying to figure out like, oh, like how like the different sounds and like the recording and everything kind of came together. So plus like I only write music I want to hear, so it's like enjoyable to listen to.
Well, that definitely makes it a lot easier to listen to over and over.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite song on the album?
Um, Probably the first song if I have to choose. And that's like kind of how I make decisions going forward now is like I pick my favorite songs and put them on the first half of the album, and then my second favorite songs or whatever are going to be on the B side. So it's like I feel like your A side should always be your best songs, like, and then the B side will be your second favorite songs. So it's like I want everyone to hear my favorite songs first. And sure, people can talk about like, oh, you want the album to flow, but you also want people to hear your best shit first, especially I mean, our album's not very long because I like have a short attention span and I like be able to just like have all killer, no filler. I'm one of those people that I hate interludes. I don't like long intros. Um, it's just like a waste of time to me. So it always annoys me when I see an album and you're like 11 songs or 12 songs or whatever, and it's like 35 minutes. But then when you actually listen to the album, it's actually only 9 songs. And you
Mhm.
have two interludes and an outro or an intro. And it's like, obviously bands could do whatever they want. But to me, it's just a waste. Like I don't care about any of that. And like I like samples and I like, intros or outros, but as long as they're like short, you know, I guess that it's just to me, it's kind of like I get impatient or bored and it's just like, okay, why am I listening to this?
I'm sure a lot of people appreciate that because I know what you're talking about, especially in albums. If you listen to it, you're like, there's just so much filler in there.
Well, and then also I do listen to some stuff like digitally or streaming in my car, but
Hmm.
uh I listen to cassettes and vinyl mostly, and like you can't skip songs. And so it's annoying when like, the album isn't like solid all the way through. It's got like stuff that I would skip over, but like on cassettes and, records, it's a little bit more difficult to, skip over stuff.
For sure. So I have to ask, why is the first song your favorite?
Um, I don't know, it just has my favorite like riffs that I wrote. Um, it had like the best, I guess, representation as a whole of like what I wanted like our sound to be. And so, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I've listened to it and I think the album's great. So I think a lot of other people are really going to enjoy it.
I mean, that would be nice, but in the end, like, it's like I feel like most people don't write music for other people, but I'm just, if other people enjoy it, that's great too.
Yeah, definitely. So I know we talked about your favorite song. Which song was the most difficult to write on the album?
Um, there weren't really any songs that were like difficult. Uh, but I don't know, maybe the last song, the Devoid, might have been the most, just because it was my like least favorite, just because I was like undecided on it, essentially how I wanted the song to go. And so I kind of went back and forth on that the most, I guess. Um, and like in the end, I'm happy with it, but it was the one that like I just wasn't as sure of. Where like all the other ones kind of came really fast and just kind of, I don't know. Some stuff just comes quicker, and then that song kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, I just kind of wrestled with it a while. So yeah, probably that one.
Was it just like the riffs that was hard to get, or was it just like lyrics and everything just get putting it all together that made it really difficult?
Just some of like how I wanted the end of the album, and I wasn't sure what I wanted, and um, it was the last song we wrote, so I was just trying some things, and I don't know. It just like it was the most, not necessarily experimental, but just like trying some different things on it, and again, like I enjoy it, but it definitely would be my least favorite, just because it didn't come as like easy as any of the other ones.
Is that song different from like the rest of the album, or does it kind of like fit in there?
It fits in there, but it definitely is a little bit different in some of the riffing. Like uh, it has like a little bit more like melody in some spots, and I don't know. Like some parts of it I really like, and then other parts like um, I just don't like as much as the rest of the album. So it's just one of those things where it's like, you can't like everything the same, and that's just the one that ends up being like, oh, this is my least favorite.
Yeah, I got you. So is there a theme that we'll be seeing like on the album that you meant to put in there that fans will be able to kind of pick out?
Um, I mean, a lot of our lyrics are metaphoric. The way Biagio writes, it's not like direct, because
Hmm.
generally I don't like that. It's, I don't know. It's just not our style. So everything is metaphoric in the fact that it's like either derived from like, fucked up shit that people do, or a lot of it's like relating to religion, which are
Hmm.
pretty anti-religious in a lot of the lyrics. And so that kind of is how the album, like song and the whole, I guess, title and everything came together. It's just like how, um, I guess, fucked up and corrosive religion is.
Hmm. Is that kind of like the theme that you kind of will see throughout the album?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, all not every song is as direct, but a lot of it is based loosely around that theme, or again about people and like you know, kind of
Hmm.
how I guess something that might be directly tied to religion, but is just like humanity has got a lot of fucked up shit. So it's just kind of in that loose interpretation, I guess you would say. But a lot of it is like based on religion or relating to that.
Okay. So I know we talked about your favorite song being the first track. Is there a song on the album that you feel most connected to?
Um, Not necessarily. Like I enjoy them all, and like I'm glad they're all there. Again, like I said earlier, I don't like putting stuff that's filler, so it's just like I wouldn't have it on the album if I didn't think it should be there. But
Mm.
yeah, nothing in particular.
Okay. So I know there's three members of the band. Do you think that makes it easier to produce music and or do you think it makes like has its own challenges having just three members?
Definitely easier because in my other band, we're a four piece, and
Hmm.
there's a lot more cooks in the kitchen, as you would say. Um, and like on the album we did like last year, like I wrote a big chunk of it, even though I play bass. And then our singer guitar player wrote all the solos and the lyrics, but then he wrote a couple songs too. And um, definitely a much slower process, and a lot more like butting heads, or just a lot harder to work when there's like multiple people trying to contribute or like voice their opinion um, in a non like collaborative way. I mean,
Hmm.
it still came out great, but whereas like this band, having me as like the only writer as far as like the riffs go, and then like Biagio focuses on lyrics, and then Jeremy writes the drums, but he also helps him with like composition and like gives me ideas or feedback.
Hmm.
um it's a lot quicker and like just more enjoyable experience. Like I don't know, it's nice to write with other people or have feedback, but I don't know,
Right.
when there's too many opinions, it can get a little frustrating, or just like be just take forever, essentially.
Yeah, for sure. That definitely makes a lot of sense. So with the album, can you kind of walk me through like the creative process of when you first started writing and how each member contributes to that?
I mean, it's pretty simple. I basically will write like the whole song, bring it
Mhm.
in, and then basically between me and Jeremy, like we'll chop it up, make like adjustments, changes, and then basically just teach Biagio because he does bass and vocals. And then basically once the song's like finished as far as like structure, then he goes in and like lays down like phrasing and lyrics. So like he has like the blueprint of the song, and then he goes and puts the lyrics and vocals over. Um, and sometimes he'll tweak the lyrics a little bit depending on like the phrasing of the song. Like if he wrote too many lyrics, he'll kind of like trim some of the fat, which he usually does. He usually writes like too many lyrics, and our songs are not very long, so he'll usually have to like trim some of it, which is like fine because you're just like fine tuning and like trimming the fat, I guess, essentially. So, but yeah, that's our process. It's pretty simple. I just bring in a song, gets chopped up, and then lyrics and vocals are added.
Awesome. So I know you said like you do all the songs. What's your inspiration to come up with these songs?
Um, I mean, just like various bands that I've listened throughout the years, and like I don't know, I had like kind of figured out like the style I like to play, the style I like to hear, um, like what I want to create. Like this album is a lot more of like no compromise, like it's exactly what I want people to hear. Whereas like
Mhm.
the first album, like I enjoyed, but I wrote it really fast in a way, even though I had some of like the riffs for a long time. I like composed it and kind of put it together really fast. And then the second album was a lot of compromise with our old drummer, and he had a lot of strong opinions, and so we kind of butted heads, and like I made a bunch of compromises, and it's not like I hate it, but it's not everything I would want personally. And so like on the new album, we got a new drummer, and he's more in line with me as far as like our musical taste.
Mhm.
And so it kind of just like flowed a little bit easier and better, but also just kind of I didn't have to like compromise anything. I kind of just like write whatever I wanted as far as like my vision.
So it sounds like you have more control over this to produce what you wanted versus the last album
Correct.
didn't really have that.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you
Which
hope
is
that, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just say, which is like fine sometimes. Like it's, I mean, it's not like I dislike collaborating with people, but sometimes it's also nice to like have like more control or like not have to compromise anything.
Do you think that you enjoyed not having to, I guess, have as much feedback with this album and you just were more in control versus the last one?
Yeah. I mean, for this project for sure. Not in every project. It's if you're in a band, sometimes it's nice, but with this one, I've kind of like realized like I like to have more control of like what's without the final result is going to be.
Yeah, for sure. So who is your musical inspiration?
Um, well, I guess I have a lot of them. It's just stuff I grew up listening to, um, and kind of like cherry picking from like different bands because I hate or I don't think I could ever naturally just like try to emulate like one band
Hmm.
or like just be inspired to do what they wanted to do. I prefer to do my own thing. So, uh, I'm pretty across the board as far as like the spectrum. I like stuff that's like the Swedish style, like Dismember or Grave, but then I also like Finnish stuff, like Abhorrence or Dimlik, and then I also love like Bolt Thrower. They're like one of my all-time favorite bands, and then I like American stuff like Morbid Angel and Cannibal Corpse, and so uh, I kind of blend a lot of different things, and like I guess I take inspiration from bands like Incantation or Rocktrevor that kind of like did their own thing, and so I kind of like inspired by that and just kind of want to do like my own thing. So it's like essentially I want to create something that doesn't really sound like anyone else. So
That's
it
really,
basically when people hear us, everyone like if you showed it to five different people, they would say like five different bands or describe it five different ways because they all hear something different.
well, that's really cool because that also gives you like a bigger, not just a one band type of thing. It opens you up to do more things with the band too.
Sure, I guess at the same time, like I've learned to set like more parameters on like what I want it to sound like. So even though I take a lot of different inspiration and have a lot of different sounds, like I kind of like want to carve it into like a certain like sound and not get too far away from like what I wanted to.
For sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. I think that's great. I think it's, it definitely gives you more avenues that you can go into. So you're not just in, one band, I want to be like this. No, you have like a lot of options, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So, what do you hope that people take away from this album?
Um, I mean, other than just like enjoying it, like I don't know. I don't necessarily like create music for other people or have any expectations.
Mhm.
So like I write music that I want to hear. And like it's just like what I would create and put out in the world, regardless of like what other people are doing. So if you enjoy it, that's great. If it you use it to fuel your workout, if you use it to fucking you know climb a mountain, like it's just if it gets you through some like depressing job, like whatever, if you get something positive out of it or if you enjoy it, that's like I don't expect anything beyond that.
Yeah, that's great. I do have one last question here for you, and that is there any message that you would like to give any old fans, new fans, or anyone who's interested in listening to the new album?
um no, other than just like thanks for people supporting, and uh definitely buy the album from Carbonized if you can. It's all formats. Come to shows. Like I feel like people coming to shows is extremely important. Like come out, let loose. Like don't sit at home. I don't know.
Well, I do want to thank you again for taking your time for doing this interview with me.
Thanks. Yeah, definitely.
So thank you again. And for anyone who is interested, the album did come out on the 7th through the Carbonized Records. So everyone should go grab a copy. It's a really good listen.
Thanks.
So thank you again and enjoy the rest of your night.
Thanks. You as well.
Thank you. Bye bye.